For most homesteaders, raising food is a big part of becoming more self-sufficient. However, sometimes we face challenges like drought, which can make it difficult to keep our crops thriving. We are in our second summer of drought, and it's really taking its toll on the farmers and homesteaders in the area. Not only does lack of rain affect our vegetable gardens, it affects our pastures where the animals graze and our hay fields where we grow food to feed the animals during the winter. We're keeping our garden going by watering it. We've divided the garden into 3 zones and rotate which area gets water every night. The potato and the tomato zones have soaker hoses, so we water those off of our well. Then there's the everything else zone, which includes the raised beds and a few in-ground beds, which I water by hand. By watering later in the evening or early in the morning, there is less risk of evaporation than there would be by watering during the hottest part of the day. We are fortunate that the town closest to us sells water for 25 cents per 100 gallons. The farmer purchases water multiple times each week to water our livestock and to help water the garden. Because it's gravity flow, it takes longer than if the water was pumped out of the well, but it saves the stress on the well. It would be a disaster if the well were to run dry. I don't think that will ever happen because we have a very good well, but we are doing everything we can to prevent it. We have found that flooding the beds 2 or 3 times each week has helped keep the garden healthy. Just look at the amount of tomatoes on these plants. The potatoes look sad, but it's not due to lack of water. It's because it's time for them to die back, and we will be harvesting them this week. Besides watering routinely to get us through the drought, we have mulched the plants to hold in moisture by preventing evaporation, and it helps to keep the soil cool. We also amend all of the beds with a thick layer of compost every year, and this makes a healthy soil that retains moisture and helps combat periods of dryness. There are varieties of vegetables that are bred to be drought resistant, but having this little rain is so unusual for us, buying those varieties didn't even cross my mind. If you live in a normally dry area, you may want to research what varieties of your favorite vegetables you can grow that need less water. Another way to support your vegetables during drought conditions is to keep the weeds out of your beds. Weeds will compete with your vegetables for that precious water, and unless you plan to eat those weeds, they gotta go. Also, once vegetable plants are done producing for the season, pull them up. There is no reason to keep watering a plant that isn't producing food. The cucumbers were still producing some fruits, but they had gotten very bitter due to the extreme heat, so I pulled them out. The stress on most of the squash had stopped their production, and the squash bugs were out of control, so I pulled those too. However, my herbs are doing well. Most herbs usually tolerate the heat well. The chamomile was done, but I let the flowers develop seeds at the end, so they will be back next year. And I harvested enough to keep me in tea throughout the winter. The sweet potatoes, Jerusalem artichokes, and peppers are still producing and are getting watered routinely. The beets are still producing, but they are starting to look pretty sad, so I'm going to give them a few more days to harvest as many as I can, then they will go also. Once you pull up the spent plants, don't forget to add mulch to the area to prevent weeds from growing there. The ground doesn't like to be naked, so if you don't cover it up, the weeds will. Our average amount of rainfall in the area is about 45 inches per year. In the last 365 days, we've gotten about 28 inches. Not only has the small amount of rainfall hurt our garden, it shows in the burned up pastures and the stemmy hay fields. The only thing left in the pastures are weeds, and even those are wilting. The farmer is mowing the pasture off to hopefully keep the weeds from going to seed. The plan is to put down grass seed this fall and hope we get some rain to build up the pastures again. The hay fields in our area are producing about 1/4 or less than the normal amount of hay that they usually do. We feed about 150 bales of hay to the cattle each year and produce about 200 bales in a normal year. 50 bales won't get us through the winter, and there was nothing left in the pasture. So the farmer was left with the decision to bale what little hay was out there and sell the cattle now, or turn the cattle onto the hayfield to eat what they could find and then sell them when it's gone. He went with option number 2. The cattle are now eating what is in the hayfield, and when it's gone, they will be sold. But we were fortunate to find hay in Kansas and have it trucked in to feed the horses over the winter. It wasn't cheap, but it is good hay, and I get to keep my horses. We have been through droughts before and understand that weather cycles and has all throughout history. Hopefully next year the rainfall will be back to normal, and more than likely we'll see too much rain in the coming years. How is the weather in your area? Are you getting too much rain, not enough, or are you Goldilocks and the rainfall is just right? One thing about homesteading is it's not boring. Some years are harder than others, but we can't imagine living any other way. Thanks for stopping by the old Mayfield place today. Stay healthy. Please pray for rain in the Midwest and have a blessed week.